Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Real Joe Quinn. Recording this on a Tuesday following, of course, the NBA Finals, which, as expected, I thought was going to end. The Denver Nuggets are your world champions. With a no doubt about it performance in the finals. They were clearly the best team throughout the course of the playoffs, 16-4. They had the best player in Nikola Jokic, and I'm sure you can guess who is going to be number one on my year-end NBA top 5 players list. Listen, this was not a great finals by any stretch of imagination. Somewhat entertaining, but it wasn't. Let's be honest. It was last night. Was you had 2 close out of 5 games. You only had 2 close games. Games 2 and last night exactly wasn't. They're not going to exactly send that to the Naismith Hall of Fame either. Considering that both teams did not play particularly well. Denver did enough offensively, especially in the second half, to get by a Miami team that just had struggled to score in the series. And we can talk about Jokic, we can talk about Murray, and we will talk about those guys. But the bottom line to me was the thing that won this series for Denver was their defense. The numbers just jump out when you really start studying them. Holding a Miami team that came in one of the hottest offensive teams in the whole entire playoffs to 96 points a game, roughly. And you think about it, they held them to 96 points a game. Miami only had a 30-point quarter. Miami had like 3 30-point quarters in this whole series. Think about that for a second. 3 30-point quarters. It was, of course, 5 games, 20 quarters total. So that, coming into the series, coming into the playoffs, that was a big question mark about the Denver Nuggets was, could they hold up defensively? They were ranked 15th, rated 15th over during the regular season. It's going to be the lowest that a team that has won a championship since going back to 2001 Lakers, who were ranked 11th during that regular season. Of course, they played lights out defense in that postseason 2001, going 15-1. And it started with their best players. Jokic defense was excellent in this series. Porter, Gordon, those guys. I mean, we know KCP always defends. Bruce Brown always defends. But Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, they're 3 best players. They're 3 best players. They're 4 best players. Jokic, 3 of their 4 best players, because they're Jokic, Murray, Gordon are their 3 best players. But Porter Jr. probably would be 4th. But 3 out of those 4 guys really stepped up in a major way. Guys that did not come in with big-time reputations defensively in terms of Jokic, Murray, and Porter Jr. all played excellent defense over the course of the series. And you got to be very, very impressed with Michael Porter Jr. I think that despite the fact that he did not shoot the ball well, he did all the little things that it takes for, he did Robert Ory type things, Bruce Bowen type things that from great role players in the past. For a guy who can easily be a 25-point per game scorer on another team. If he was on another team, they're not going to win a lot of games. He's not a number 1 guy. I'm not sure he's even a number 2 guy. He's probably his ceiling probably would be as a problem between a number 2 and a number 3 guy on a team that can win a championship. He's still very young. Let's keep that in mind as well. But of course, we know he's had some of the back injuries, some back trouble from that situation. But right now, he's in a absolute perfect situation, being in essence a number 3, number 4 guy on a team that's surrounded by 2 two guys who are all NBA type caliber players, of course, with Jokic and Murray. So it was a Denver defense that was the difference in the series. I mean, that's just that is pure and just all it is to it. I mean, Miami only cracked 100 points once. Only cracked 100 points once in this series, and that was in game 2. That was it. And Miami was, I really after the first 2 games, those open looks that Miami got, those were taken away after the first 2 games. First 2 games, Denver's defense was not very good. They got away with it in game 1, did not get away with it in game 2. Games from games 3 to 5, the Denver defense was spectacular. I mean, it really was. Like those last 3 games in the series, they played championship lockdown defense. And Miami had no answers. And, with lack of, really not having limited shot creators, that's going to stunt what you can do from a defensive standpoint, from an offensive standpoint. Of course, they certainly missed Tyler Hero. I don't know why Tyler Hero didn't play last night, considering all the talk. I mean, going into the game, he had been upgraded to questionable. It seemed like, I think, and again, it's not for me to question the great Eric Spoelstra, who is the best coach in the league, hands down, and on his way to and certainly will be a Hall of Fame. It is a Hall of Fame coach right now, but I didn't quite understand why Hero didn't play last night. I mean, he couldn't give him 10, 15. He couldn't give him 10 minutes. Because they struggled to score, and for the third straight game, you had Miami struggling coming out the break. Denver, the last 3 games, held Miami. It was basically 20, 22, and 20 in those 3 quarters. And those third quarters, in essence, those last 3 games, those third quarters, in essence, decided the game, especially in games 3 and 4. Now, last night, they had a bad third quarter, but fourth quarter they were still right there in the fourth quarter. So I don't think the third quarter changed the game. I don't think it necessarily decided the game. Games 3 and 4 in Miami, the third quarter decided that game, decided those 2 games. Period. This was a physical game. This was it was the definition of a rock fight. It was Miami's type of game. To be honest with you, pace was not quick, low scoring, but Denver showed they can win any style. They showed that really in game 3, in game 2 of the Phoenix series. If you go back after that first game where it was some of the best offensive basketball you will ever see in game 1 with Jokic and Murray and Durant and Booker just going berserk in that game 1. Game 2 was a rock fight. They won the game by 10 points. I think it was like 97-87. So that was the first sign against a big offensive team that Denver showed you that they can win another way. And of course, to win a championship, you have to be able to win in multiple ways. You have to. And you look at this series, Denver, for all the talk about their offense was good. It wasn't great in this series. They had spurts where they played great offense, but for the most part, I thought defensively, Miami held up relatively well against Denver. Like Denver averaged what? Denver did not average. Denver only averaged 104 points a game. 104 points. 115 rating, which is relatively high. 104 points. That you hold Denver to, again, and I'll continue to say this. You hold Denver under 110. You've done your job. They are as explosive of an offensive team as there is in the league. So Miami, I thought, did relatively pretty good, decent job against the Denver offense. Denver did not shoot the ball well from the 3. Miami made more 3s than Denver. But here's where the difference was in the series, obviously, other than defense, and other than the fact that Denver's has the talent gap was significant. And I think we're going to look back at the talent gap and say, how the hell did Miami even make it to the finals? Like, seriously, the gap in talent with these 2 teams was just, it was catastrophic. It was think about this. Miami had 7 undrafted guys on their team. 7. 7 guys who have been undrafted. Okay. You have Denver, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. was a lottery pick. Aaron Gordon was a lottery pick. Jamal Murray, I believe Mark Murray was a lottery pick. Yeah, Murray was a lottery pick. Okay. Uh, Now Jokic, of course, is the outlier. He's a second round pick. Nobody knew he was going to be what he was, so that he's the outlier. But as far as just talent, like pure, like sheer talent, man for man, player for player, it wasn't. It's not even close. Like this really should have been a sweep. To be honest with you, and you're going to call it a gentleman sweep, but it should have been an outright sweep. But Miami's toughness, their exposure, were able to get them at least one game and be competitive in this particular game. But the talent, the gap in talent, the talent gap was significant between these two teams. And how Miami got to the finals, I think we would be looking at that 20, 30, 40 years from now, saying, how the hell did this did the 2023, 2022, 23 Miami Heat get to the finals? Like we're seriously going to be looking at that and saying, there's no way that this team should have got to the finals. Milwaukee and Boston. So that we talk about, again, we talk about Miami. That this is one of the better stories in recent NBA history in terms of AFC, a real AFC, playing AFC, getting to the NBA Finals. But to the victor goes the spoils. It's all about Denver. When you talk about Jokic, I don't think that is like hyperbole. I don't think it's an overreaction to say that this was one of the great postseasons in recent memory in the last 30 years. I was doing some digging, looking at some postseasons that kind of stood out. So Jokic for the postseason was 30, 13, and almost 10 assists. Splits 54, 46, and 80. Those were his splits. No, excuse me. That was his finals. Postseason, he was 30, 13, and 9. Yeah, 30, 13, and 9. The splits were about 55, 46. The splits were about 55, 40, and 80, basically. He, in the finals, averaged 30, 14, and 7. No player in the history of the finals has ever put up that stat line. Okay. He, put the triple doubles aside, right? Just dominating the game without scoring, and dominating the game with just sheer basketball, just sheer skill and intelligence, and again, and some physicality too, because he can punish you with the post up game. When he got onto smaller players, you had no chance. You put a smaller guy on Jokic, he's going to bury him in the paint, because you have no chance guarding him with a small guy. And that's the thing about Joker that makes him unique. He is kind of the new evolution of the big man as far as shooting, passing, court vision, but he gives you some of that throwback as far as being able to punish you down low with his size. So he has the total package as an offensive player, and his defense was very good in the playoffs, very good in the NBA Finals. But slightly, I would say he was slightly above average, to be honest with you. So I don't want to ever hear about, he's a defensive liability. He's not. He's no longer. You can no longer say that he's a defensive liability. That can be erased with his performance in the finals this year. Looking at what Denver did against Miami defensively. Looking at some of the all-time great playoff runs. So just going back, of course, to the early 90s. 93, you had Jordan, 35, 6, and 6. Again, all-world defense, 2.1 steals. He averaged 41 a game in the finals that year. That was when they took out Phoenix. Remember, 1993, he is at the peak of his powers as far as physically, mentally. He's at this point a 2-time champion, soon to be 3-time champion. He is at his apex in 1993. I felt like that first wave of Michael Jordan, those championship. The second wave of the championship was more about the mid range and more about how strong he had gotten. Like he bulked up more from 96 to 98, and he got by on his athleticism has started to dissipate to the extent where he did play that much above the rim. It was more about the mid range strength, post up, and he psychologically destroyed you. The 91 through 93 Jordan, the first three-peat, that was just that was Air Jordan. Like that was Air Jordan with high basketball IQ, and at that point he had learned how to win. So that to me, that 91 to 93 version of Jordan is his best. And 93, he was just completely unstoppable. 95, one that doesn't get talked about enough. Keem Olajuwon, 33, 10, 4.5 assists, 2.8 blocks. He goes through Barkley, Malone, Stockton, David Robinson, and then of course Shaquille O'Neal. Think about that playoff run. Think about that. Malone, Stockton in their prime. Charles Barkley was still an all NBA caliber player, still a great player. David Robinson was MVP that year, and he embarrassed him in that Western Conference Finals in '95. And then he tops it off with outplaying a young Shaq, a young Shaquille O'Neal, who at the time was about 25. I want to say 24, 25. Shaq was about 25, 24, 25. Like 20. Yeah, because that was the same 23. That was the year before he went to the Lakers. And that as a free agent in '96. So Shaq was about 23 years old. And like Shaq was not at the peak of his powers. Physically, Shaq was at the peak of his powers. Physically. Like that's Shaquille O'Neal that was just not only strong as an ox, but that was Shaquille O'Neal that could beat you down the floor. And it was like that Shaquille O'Neal. And Shaquille O'Neal that year, that's when Shaquille O'Neal, along with Penny Hardaway, those were top 5 players that year. He was a legit top 5 player. So that's one of the great one playoff runs that doesn't get talked about enough to me. Shaq in 01, 30, 15, 3 assists, and of course 2 blocks. That 01 Laker team he led, that was Shaquille O'Neal just destroying everybody. He dismantled Robinson and Duncan in that Western Conference Finals in 2001. And of course, he just, they swept the Nets. Not the Nets. They had their way with the Sixers after losing the first game. They almost, if not for Iverson with the 48-point game one, they would have went undefeated. Giannis, a couple years ago, 30, 12, basically 30, 13, and 5 on 50%, 57% shooting. Takes out Durant in Game 7 in Brooklyn. And then gets to the finals and has one of the great finals in recent memory, with the 35 points, the 50, 14, and 5 Game 6 clincher. That was one for the age. That was one of the great finals performances of all time. Giannis's finals performance in 21 was up there. You can put up there with anybody, how dominant he was. And that playoff run was up there as well. And of course, last year, and of course, this year with Jokic. So, I put Jokic's up there with any of those guys, some of those all-time great players. Now, you want to say, and again, I can already hear the murmurs, where's LeBron? Here's the thing. LeBron has been a great, great postseason player. But when LeBron, all these guys won championships, by the way. I've seen LeBron put up better big-time numbers actually in a year where he did win a championship. LeBron's put up better numbers in years where he did not win championships, believe it or not, with some of his stats, especially like in 2009 against Orlando or that series and that playoffs in general. Go back and check those numbers. But the thing about LeBron is the numbers do not stand out as much because he played on teams that were, let's be honest, he played on a couple of super teams in Miami and in Cleveland. 3 of his championships came on super teams. Let's just cut the bullshit. Like 11, 12, playing alongside Wade and Bosh, that was a super team. So his numbers did not jump out. He still put up excellent numbers, but the numbers did not jump out as much. The last final, the best finals LeBron probably had statistically, along with the team winning, is probably 2020 with the Lakers. and he had a great postseason that year, a great postseason run. So I could have put LeBron's 2020 postseason in that category, to be fair about it. Now I'm thinking about it. So probably LeBron 2020 as well could be, if we want to be real about it, could be up there. But regardless, Jokic, this is one of the great postseason runs in the history of basketball in the last 30 years. I was going through the top 75 because I was, when now Jokic has entered different territory. When you win a championship and a Finals MVP, along with what he's done over the course of his career with the 2 MVPs, all NBAs, you gotta start thinking about where he ranks all time. So I was going through the top 75, and he cleared 40 guys. Those 40 guys easily. Now, once he got to around 30, it was like, okay, is he better than so on, so and so? Is he better than this? It's like now we can start to get into some debates. But there are 40 guys on that list where maybe 40 to 45 guys that he clearly is better than. At minimum 40 that he clearly has jumped. He's jumped every dude that does not have a championship ring. To me, he's jumped. Sorry, he's better than. You want to talk about Ewing, Malone, Barkley, Allen Iverson, all those guys. Steve Nash. He's better than. Period. That's just that goes without saying. Like the guy has two MVPs. So I think right now you have to put him in that top 30 to 35 range and climbing for a said and done. Like he probably is going to get to that top 15 range. He's probably going to be in that top 15 range minimum. He's probably going to be in that top 15 range. So look back at the NBA season. What did we learn from this NBA season? In particular from the postseason. I'm not going to say that the regular season doesn't mean anything because Denver had a great regular season. They were number 1 in the West, got home court, and they won a championship. But you really got it, like regular season basketball versus postseason basketball. I think the separation in terms of style of play, intensity has grown. Even like it's the separation is even bigger. You can't, unfortunately, put too much stock in the regular season, and you can't put as much stock in the regular season as you used to. With these in-season trades, with injuries, with the load management, like the game is just completely different. There are guys who are frankly regular season players. Julius Randle stands out. He's a regular season player. He's a regular, like there are guys that are whose games just are not going to come out in the postseason. They're not gonna shine in the postseason. Specialists have been almost, those guys have been played off the court. Now again, regular season you have to play more guys. You have to get to the postseason. You are hard pressed to play a specialist in the postseason. Now, Duncan Robinson, I can make a case that Duncan Robinson is no longer a specialist. You know why? Duncan Robinson was putting the ball on the floor, was creating offense for others, was getting plays ran for him during key moments in the playoffs. Okay, this is Duncan Robinson. So he even had to expand on his game in order to be on the court. Remember, last couple of seasons, Duncan Robinson has not been he's been a liability on the court. Like their teams have played him completely off the court in the last 2 years. Remember, he played great was great in the bubble, shooting the lights out. Against Milwaukee in 2021 when they got swept, non-factor. Last year in the postseason, non-factor. Couldn't even get on the court. This season, Duncan Robinson was a very key factor, very key cog off the bench. And again, expanded his game. He actually putting the ball on the floor, not just settling for 3-point shots, going in for layups. Like I said, creating offense for others. So the day of the specialist in the playoffs, that day is done. I don't think you could be a specialist offensively. Now, you could be a specialist defensively because there's still something to do. There are enough great offensive players to where you can kind of hide a subpar offensive player. If a guy is good, if a guy is great at defense, if he can rebound, if he great at rebounding or great at just individual defender, you can only have one of those guys. You can't have more than one on the court at the same time. You can have one of those guys, but you have to have some a bevy of talent offensively around him. But you cannot be you cannot be a specialist offensively and stay on the court in the playoffs. You will get exposed. Teams will absolutely abuse you, especially if you're an average to mediocre defender. If you're a specialist that's an average to mediocre defender, you're not playing. You're just not. And even Duncan Robinson's defense was slightly improved, to be honest with you, in comparison to past years. Also, and again, I'm gonna keep harping on this till I can't talk anymore. The love affair with the 3-point shot. If teams need to learn, right? We don't have to go gung ho over the 3-point shot. I mentioned earlier, Denver was outshot by Milwaukee as far as 3-pointers made. They made Miami made 15 more 3-point shots than Denver in this series. You know why Denver? Want to know why that didn't matter? Denver out-rebounded Miami by an average of 9 rebounds, and they outscored them in the paint by an average of almost 14 points. Rebounding and points in the paint. There are certain things that just will not, like basketball, it is what it is. I don't care about the 3-point shot. Is what it is. The 3-point shot is great when it goes in, but points in the paint, the game is still, to me, won in the paint. You can't win a championship if you're getting destroyed on the boards. You can't win a championship. You're not going to win a championship if you're getting destroyed in terms of points in the paint. That is more consistent than the 3-point shot. Easy baskets are more consistent than a 3-point shot. The most efficient shot in basketball is still a layup or a dunk. That's still the most efficient and effective score. I'll take that over any 3-point shot because, again, we've seen, how many years have we seen in the last 3, 4, 5 years these teams can't hit the side of the barn from the 3-point range? As far as trying to replicate, teams are going to try to replicate what Denver did. That's Denver, Miami, what they did. That's, it's a copycat. Sports is copycats. It's a copycat league when it comes to, you want to do what it took, what the champion did, or what somebody who made the finals. I want to say this. There are parts that just can't be replicated as far as Miami and Denver. You can't replicate Jokic. Jokic is one Nikola Jokic. You can't replicate Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. That can't be replicated. What you can replicate from these organizations is player development, drafting, and accountability within organizational accountability, continuity. You can replicate that. Mike Malone, year 8. Eric Spoelstra, this is year 15 for Spoelstra. Patience can be replicated. Again, player development and drafting and player development. Guys come to Denver, they get better. Guys who on other teams might not even be in the league play for Miami, undrafted guys. And again, when this new CBA comes into effect, if teams are going to compete for championships year in, year out, they're going to be consistently amongst the contenders. They're going to have to somewhat replicate what Denver and Miami, those aspects of Denver and Miami, which can be replicated somewhat to a certain extent. But the Jokic and Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, that cannot be replicated. Those guys, like those 3 entities between these 2 teams, cannot be replicated. They just like that. Like Pat Riley is Pat Riley, like that, And when Popovich is done eventually, and Spoelstra's done, I don't know if we'll ever see another coach go past 15 years. I don't. I just think it's too hard in today's game, and it's too much money. Coaches don't have to coach that long. Like, they're making more money than they ever made before. A lot of guys have aspirations to be general managers and executives and what have you. So we're gonna go to my top 5 top 5 players season ending list. It's not the first time I brought this to the podcast. I think this might be the second year. I normally just post it on social media, but we're wrapping up the NBA. I can bring it to the podcast. We'll bring it to this podcast. So we're at number 1. We'll start at the top. Nikola Jokic. I don't think it's any surprise. He takes the reins after 2 years from the Greek Freak. Again, one of the great postseasons in recent history. He is as complete of an offensive player that the game's ever seen offensively. There's literally nothing that he cannot do offensively at a high elite level from an offensive standpoint. Puts the ball on the floor, can shoot, passing is all world, post up, can do nothing he can't do offensively. And he is the guy who low maintenance as far as leadership, low maintenance. You're not worrying about Jokic's ego. You're not worrying about him doing some dumb shit off the floor. You don't even have to worry about none of that stuff when it comes to Jokic. They're durable. He's going to play every game. This guy, I might be selling him short with possibly being top 15 players of all time when it's said that. Maybe he could be top 10. Maybe. Well, we got to win more than one championship. But right now, he's the best player in the world. I don't think there's really any room for debate from that standpoint. Giannis coming in is at number 2. Disappointing postseason. You lose in the first round of Miami in 5 games. He held it down, held that title for the last couple of years. I still probably, if I had to pick between the two to build my team around, I still probably would lean towards Giannis because of what he does defensively. Though Jokic's defense has improved a lot during the postseason. They're both the same age. They both have now, amazingly, have similar resumes. 28 years old, two MVPs and a Finals MVP and a championship. So Giannis has more, of course, accolades as far as All NBA. He's been on more All NBA teams, offensively and defensively. So he has that going for him. Jokic doesn't care about the All-Star game. Giannis has an All-Star MVP. That Jokic could care less about that. So Giannis comes in at number 2, a solid number 2. I don't think there's any question. Nobody's close to him from that standpoint, but taking that number 2 spot from him. Number 3, Steph Curry. Steph Curry, I think, is playing the best basketball of his career. Physically, he's as strong as he's ever been. He is stronger than he's ever been. There's more on him now than there's ever been before. You saw, and he still took the team to the second round. Took them as far as they were going to go. His impact on the game, he's still a guy that can impact the game without making a shot, from the standpoint of how you have to set up your defense to defend him, and the stuff that he sets up opens up for his teammates. It's still he's still one of the most impactful players by far in the league. And it's not like he just his shooting. And now, again, he's improved defensively. He's gotten stronger. You can't push him around anymore. He's improved his floor game, the assists, the rebounds. Because we know he had the 50-point game 7. That was a classic Steph Curry performance. Been a great postseason player. I know he wasn't great against the Lakers, but again, that team went as far as it was going to go. Steve Kerr mentioned it. They maxed out. this year. But again, still one of the top 5 players in the league. I have him number 3. At number 4, this could be a little surprising, but it shouldn't be that surprising. Jason Tatum. I think people forget that Tatum has lived in the Eastern Conference Finals. He's only 25 years old. He scores 51 in a Game 7. That still matters. Two-way player, can defend multiple positions. Think people pay too much attention to what he can't do versus what he actually does. I'm not one of these people that I'm not one of these fans or one of these people that respond to every Jason Tatum game, even if he doesn't play as well. I look at the totality of this year and even with the playoffs. And Tatum, to me, right now, with skill, age, and what he's done, there's no question to me that he's a top 5 player. This is like I don't know. It's not even a debate as far as I'm concerned. Coming at number 5, this is gonna be a surprise. This is what people are gonna get on me. I don't care. It's my list. Jimmy Butler. And you will say, well, how could Jimmy Butler be top 5 after his performance in the finals? I will tell you, you are out of your mind. When you're the best player on the team that no one had sniffing the finals. And again, I'm taking the totality of the performance. He goes 27, 6-6 in the playoffs. Numbers dropped in the finals, but think about who he went through. He goes through Giannis, Tatum, and Brown. No Tyler Hero, which put more of a burden on him. Plays both ends of the court. Tremendous leader, a complete team guy. And again, looking at the totality of these last 4 years, finals. He's been in 3 conference finals in the last 4 years. 2 NBA finals in the last 4 years. And by far, and by the way, they were not supposed to win either one of these NBA finals, especially this year. And they weren't supposed to beat the Lakers in 2020, led by LeBron and Anthony Davis. So it's not like he's getting to the finals and losing when the talent is even or when it's a toss-up. No, they've been decisive underdogs in both finals and should have frankly lost both finals. He's top. To me, I don't see how you not put him in the top 5 considering the impact that he has on winning. And it's not like he's not making all NBA teams. He was second team all NBA this year. And he's a guy, like I said, when the lights are on, the brightest, he's going to be at his best. And to take a number 8 seed to the NBA Finals, we're going to be looking at, we're really not going to appreciate this until years down the road. I've seen great players, right, put up great numbers and can't drag their teams past the first or second round. As great as Luka was last year, they got embarrassed by Dallas, by Golden State in the conference finals. As great as he was. I mean, 06 Kobe Bryant, 35 points, 81-point game, lost in 7 games in the first round as a 7 seed. So if you're below a 4th seed or a 5th seed, you're talking that 6, 7, 8 range. You're not expected to make any type of run in the playoffs. Please, not expected to do anything in the playoffs. Maybe win a round, not even win a round. So again, I want a guy on my team I know it's going to be there, performing at a high level in the postseason. No excuses, low maintenance. He's become low maintenance. He's not. And by the way, those places that he's left, they've gotten worse. Every place he's left has gotten worse or has not advanced past when he left them. Like the Sixers have not gotten past the second round. Minnesota, have they gotten past the first round? No. Chicago, Chicago's gotten worse. That should tell you something about where Jimmy Butler's at right now. We're not putting Luka in the top 5. Sorry. From a talent standpoint, without question, Luka is probably a top 3 talent, top 2 talent. But I'm sorry, they didn't make the playoffs this year. They didn't fucking make the play in. I really I can't put him in the top 5 this year. He shouldn't have been first team All NBA, to be honest with you. So yeah, Luka's not a top 5 player. Can't is not a top 5 player at the end of the season. Kevin Durant, not a top 5 player at the end of the season. Didn't play, barely played during the regular season. And in the playoffs, they got put out, lost in the there in the playoffs. They got by Phoenix, got by a Clipper team that had basically was down to playing guys that Norm Powell and Russell Westbrook, like, and struggled to win that series. Like, they won in 5, but struggled to win that series, and got, and again, they acquitted themselves well against Denver outside the last 2 games, and they're going to look back and say, hey, we gave Denver their toughest challenge, but they were never. Denver was never in that series was never in any serious Denver was never in any real jeopardy of losing that series. And he got outplayed by Jokic by a mile. I'm sorry, Durant, as great as Durant still is, I would put Durant's probably a top 7, top 8 player. He's not a top 5 player right now. He's not. Forget about that conversation as best player in the world. He's not in that conversation right now. He's not. Right now, ending the season, I can't put Kevin Durant or Luka in my top 5. Again, this list was, and you look at this list. This list was geared more towards postseason, a balance of postseason and regular season, mostly leaning towards postseason this year. I couldn't drop Giannis past 2. Like, come on. I know, like, Giannis, I couldn't drop Giannis past 2. Especially when those other guys, Curry and Tatum, didn't get to the NBA Finals. And bottom line is, I'm still taking into account who I would want moving forward as well. I still gotta be fair about that. Still taking that into account. And I'm not dropping the injuries were standard. I can't drop a guy who's been number 1 the last 2 years, really out the top 3. Like, no, Giannis is clearly better than Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler. And he's better than Steph Curry. Like, he's a better player than Steph Curry, like, right now in this stages of their careers. And I love Steph Curry. So we look at some things in regards to next season. First of all, so this is going to mark the 5th straight year that we've had a different champion, starting with the 2019 Toronto Raptors. Again, the first time since going back to 77 through 81 that we had a different champion before the Lakers and Celtics started just winning all the championships in the 80s. I think you're going to have a next year. I think we're going to have a different one next year. Like, I think that the league right now, and people toss around the word dynasty with Denver. I'm like, slow down here. This league right now, there's more parity than there's ever been. Denver's probably going to lose Bruce Brown. The room here is very small. There are more talented players than there have ever been. Even the bad teams have excellent players. So I don't see a repeat for Denver. I just think it's too hard in this day and time in the NBA. I really do. I just think that we're gonna have. I can see us in the rest of the decade. It's 2023. I think Denver or Milwaukee will win another championship before the decade is over. I can see that. I don't think that we're going to be in a situation where I just don't think it's going to be any back-to-backs. I don't, to be honest with you. So Denver's in great position. They have their 2 best players are under contract for a while. They have some nice young core talent mixed with some veteran players. What great organization. Excellent coach. So they're in a position. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. Like, we were having the same conversation about Milwaukee in 2021. Like, look at all the things they had going for them. They haven't been back to the finals since. And this is Giannis coming off of 50, 14, and 5 NBA finals. So I think this is what the NBA is going to look like for the foreseeable future. I think dynasties are done. To be honest with you, I don't foresee any. Wembanyama, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Spurs. How long it takes for them to build around him, but I just don't see any dynasties moving forward in the league in the coming future in the NBA. Couple things where I let you go. To think about going to the offseason. Jaylen Brown, Supermax eligible, of course, 5 years, $295. Question is, will they give him the full Supermax? Will he accept anything less than the full Supermax? What if he doesn't? What does that look like going into the season? Will he be someone who will let's say he doesn't get the full Supermax from Boston? Will he be content to either take less or to just become an outright free agent in 2024? So a lot of things go into play in terms of what may transpire. I think they probably will give him the full Supermax. And by the way, you can give him the full Supermax and still, that doesn't lock him to be a Celtic for life. He still can be a trade. It can still be a trade asset. But that'll be something that'll be talked about during the offseason. Will he accept the full Supermax, considering there are concerns that he doesn't want to be in Boston? Not for the team's sake, but just, for the city and some of the things that, that he's dealt with, that, just some of the things that he said in that New York Times article a couple of months ago. So I don't think there's a general consensus that he's not in love with the city. And he didn't, at the last press conference, he didn't go out his way to say, I want to be a Celtic for life. I'll put it to you that way. Portland is number 3 pick. Now, there are teams that are already looking, there are veteran teams that are already looking to get this number 3, to move up to get this number 3 pick. If you're Portland, I can't see Dame Lillard playing with whoever they draft number 3. I think if you're Portland, you're either going to shop Dame Lillard, shop the number 3 pick, or maybe even go all out, rebuild, and shop both of them. I could see that, but I don't see them getting enough assets back. Let's say they decide to keep Dame Lillard. I don't see them getting enough back for the number 3 pick to say all of a sudden say now we have a contending team. Even with the Western Conference being somewhat in flux, there's still some excellent teams up top. And now the question is, which has more value, Dame Lillard, who's coming off an All-NBA caliber season, or that number 3 pick? Again, if you're gonna move one of them, if you're gonna move Dame Lillard, I think you might as well move that number 3 pick. Unless you think Scoot Henderson or Miller are drop dead locks to be all-stars and franchise players. In that case, you can move Lillard, get a bunch of assets back, and build around Scoot Henderson and move forward in terms of that. And what would the Milwaukee Bucks do? Milwaukee's going to have to reset their team. Giannis is obviously, you still have some great Giannis years left. He is extension eligible. We'll keep your eyes on that. They're going to have to do something. Middleton will certainly exercise his contract for $40 million. They're going to have to move somebody. That team cannot come back the same. They just can't. They're built for the regular season right now, not as well constructed for the postseason. So those are 3 things to look forward to in the offseason. You have the draft coming up next week, next Thursday, and free agency, of course. Free agent class is not dry. I mean, I know Harden, Kyrie Irving, I understand it, but it's the outside. The pickings are very slim in terms of free agency, very slim. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I will see you next time. Have a great rest of your week. So long.